Before we begin the next segment, to remind people, we are a membership show. I know we provide free podcasts to people on Mondays and the weekends, but we're primarily driven by our membership. It's a $3 membership, and you get activities such as shows during the week. We get articles, enrollment in our website, best of shows, video of the show if you donate more than $3. You can get ad-free content. All of these things are available at our membership site. If you go to libertyneversleeps.com and click on the donate button, it'll give you all the details and how we take every form of payment, and it's all secure. No one can know, because I know this show gets banned a lot, and I know it's not safe for work. We are an anti-woke show. We are an anti-liberal show. There's no question about it. So I know it's not safe for work, but you can donate with complete confidentiality through our website. Details are there, libertyneversleeps.com. Israeli territory. Israel has been accused of capturing Palestine, occupying. Free Palestine, that's what you hear, occupying. The Jewish people and the Israeli people have been living in this area of the world just as the Palestinians since time memorial. Back in the day in the Roman Empire, it was called Judea. It's where the Jewish people get their name. They have cohabitated for thousands of years, and there's been violence for thousands of years. The Roman Empire dealt with violence between the Arabic and Islamic peoples and the Jewish people all the way back in their day. They had to keep them apart. They conquered the territory. It's not occupied. It's cohabitated. Israel has decided and made a revolution in the 40s and established their borders, their national borders. They were much smaller when they were first established. This is why Palestine says it's occupied territory. You expanded it. The reason Israel has more territory now than when it first formed was because the Arabs attacked Israel. And Israel fought back, most notably in the 1973 Arab-Israeli War, and they captured those territories. That was the penalty that the Arabs suffered. It is not occupied territory. It is captured territory. Territory that the Palestinians sacrificed themselves when they attacked Israel. Israel has not attacked an Arab enemy since its inception, except in self-defense. It has to. It has limited resources. Their backs are up against the sea, and they are hated by many nations around this world. That's what the Israeli territory is. It is well-established borders. The United Nations has recognized it. In fact, the United Nations has recognized an independent state of Palestine, and did so because they said, well, we don't have territory, Israel does, this is unfair. So the United Nations established territory for Palestine. There are borders. They have a flag that flies at the UN. Biden gave them $75 million of your taxpayer money to Palestine directly to aid them in forming their own nation and establishing a border. This is what I have always said was a good idea. Draw a line in the sand. This is where you live. This is where we live. Jerusalem is a shared city. Islam and Jewish people alike have religious sites there. It's why it's never been bombed. It's considered an open city. Appropriately so. There's a lot of argument. And I don't want to get into the argument because it's not relevant insofar as what's happening in the attack, which is what I want to focus on today. Palestinians say, well, this should be our territory. Israel say, no, this should be our territory. There's the Gaza Strip. There are settlements in these territories. They're disputed territories. That goes on with any two nations, with the exception of the United States. It does not have disputed territory except by the claims of the indigenous people during Columbus Day, which were largely ignored. So there are disputes. That's ordinary. And when you have a dispute in territory, you come to a peace table and you go, listen, Palestinian people are living in this area, and Israel claims it as its own. Maybe we could negotiate a settlement. Maybe we could purchase it. Maybe we could sacrifice some territory that the Jewish people are living on in exchange for more territory for Palestine. That's what and you come to an agreement. You sit down, you talk things over. This is what I have maintained, and we'll get into it later, about Ukraine. Why didn't we come to a settlement with Ukraine? We did with Bill Clinton And Boris Yeltsin, this is your territory, that's our territory, this will remain neutral. That won't be. There were disputes about NATO encroachment on Warsaw Pact nations and vice versa. This is why I have an issue with Putin. He invaded. He said, I give up on the negotiation. Negotiations should never give up. There should always be give and take. Donald Trump arranged for a peace accord which was historical. It's called the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accords, they were negotiated by the Trump administration in 2020. They secured diplomatic relations between 4 Muslim nations: Israel, which was the Jewish one, then the Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, and Sudan. This was monumental because it was the first time Jewish people and Arabic people came down and said, okay, this is the line in the sand. This is what we'll agree to. This is what we won't agree to. We can open up trade. We can open up flights. We can live as civilized people in the world together. Hamas and the Hezbollah and the Iranians won't do that. They refuse to allow Israel to even exist in its own territory that is occupied for 6,000 years. And the State Department currently bungled it. There have been tensions rising in the last year and a half between the Hezbollah, the Hamas, and the Israelis. Netanyahu has been warning about it. There's a problem. Iran has been funding these groups and agitating them. They've been firing rockets. Iran has been moving troops into Syria. As a matter of fact, Trump attacked some of those bases with drones because they were loading in chemical weapons into that border. And they knew full well that the Iranian-backed Syrian rebels would use those chemical weapons on Israel, shouldn't have been. I got to tell you, if Trump had not destroyed those chemical facilities, you would have seen chemical attacks and biological attacks during this attack. This has been planning in years. This was not something that was spur of the moment. They knew full well, while they were negotiating for a release of our prisoners and a release of $6 billion in funds, they knew full well that they were going to attack Israel. They sat down with the United States and said that $6 billion will be used for humanitarian aid. We're not a terrorist nation, knowing full well that they were planning a massive attack in October. They knew it. This is why I talk about evil. This is why I talk about you can't negotiate with Iran in good faith. You can't. They are not going to hold to the terms no matter what you think, no matter what you say. They are an enemy nation. They have told you this. They have done so in their actions. Netanyahu has said the same thing. They're an enemy nation. They're going to build a nuclear weapon, and they're going to use it. If you don't think that these psychopaths and these evil people which attacked Israel won't use a nuclear weapon if they have it, you're out of your mind. They don't care about the implications. They don't care that it might kill a whole bunch of Palestinians as well. They will use a nuclear weapon if they get a hold of it, and Iran will give it to them. And Iran will give it to them and say, oh, that was Hamas. That was the Hezbollah. That was the Islamic extremists. That's not us. It's a bunch of horse dung. And the State Department bungled it. This is the attitude that Donald Trump took. No deal. No deal with Iran. We're not going to negotiate a slower way for you to get a nuclear weapon. We're going to cut off your money, and we're going to do it and tell the rest of the world to do it. That's what should have been done. That policy should have continued with the Biden administration. The Biden administration undermined a previous presidential administration on foreign policy, and that is something that is a difference from previous administrations. Every previous administration looks at the president before and says, okay, this is what he did. We're going to maintain these treaties. Even though we don't agree with it, we're still going to maintain the treaty. And all of it was thrown away because we wanted to do deals with the Palestinians and with the Iranians. Sympathies. Jimmy Carter was the first progressive that had sympathies for Islamic extremism. He was the one that encouraged the Shah to allow the Ayatollah to come back to Iran. He was the one who didn't stand up to the Iranian students when they took our embassy and they took hostages. Carter. Progressives. The hard left. They don't see Israelis as friendly to them. They see Israelis as the problem. They are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. In fact, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and some of these others still have not condemned the attacks. They simply say, oh, we call for peace. No, there can be no peace for a while. Israel has to get its measure of blood. Israel has to shut down Hamas and Hezbollah. Do you think that it's right that Hamas and Hezbollah should go into Israel, kill thousands of Israelis, kill Americans, and then simply say, okay, we want peace? No, it doesn't work like that. Their infrastructure and their military and their coordination has to be completely eliminated and destroyed. Then we'll talk peace. After you're completely neutralized, then we'll talk peace. Then you're going to have to beg us to stop. That's how it works. That's how it should have worked in 9/11 when they attacked us. We should have leveled half of the Middle East. We should have leveled Afghanistan. We should have shut down Pakistan. And we didn't. We allowed them to negotiate peace and settle with us before the job was done. No, the job has to be done first. I say this to the Ukrainians too. You're at war with Russia. What's your end game? You're not going to be able to invade Russia. You're not going to be able to stop Putin. So you better come to the table now. Same thing with the Russians. You're not going to be able to beat the Ukrainians as long as we're supplying them troops and arms and munitions. So why don't you come to the table? When that moment happens in the Middle East, then it'll be time to come to the table. But not now. The Israelis have to have their measure of safety. It's not enough just to fund the Iron Dome anymore. Hamas, Hezbollah, they have to be ended. Or at least the infrastructure that allows them to do these things has to be shut down. There could be no peace unless you... And Mike Pence, I'm going to get into it in a minute. We're going to go to break. Mike Pence came out and he says, well, this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Donald Trump and DeSantis being weak on foreign policy, because he was referring to the hard right, Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump saying, well, we need to disentangle ourselves from foreign policy. Yeah, but Israel is a democracy with a mutual defense treaty. This is a little different. And Donald Trump, for his part, has done more to protect the safety of Israel than any previous president. Even the Israelis say that. Let's get into it in our anti-Semitic Congress. We'll be right back after this brief message.